Welcome everyone to Life Intrigue's Haunt Department, where we take you behind the scenes and show you how we put together our annual haunted trail. Unfortunately, I recently underwent surgery to repair an ankle broken during a trail race, so I won't be able to be in front of the camera for today's video. Instead, I thought I would simply walk you through last year's creation of one of our larger props. Now, ironically, that prop was inspired by another trail running injury just the year before. I clipped a root and slammed into a tree, breaking my elbow. Some would say I should find another sport. To immortalize that mishap, we created a haunted tree we call Revenge. This was prior to videotaping the construction process, but we did take a number of pictures during this build that I'll try my best to walk through. First, a bit of disappointing news. This prop is just over 9 feet tall with a width of at least 10 feet from branch tip to branch tip. It was too big to fully assemble in our shop, and tragedy struck soon after we got it assembled on the trail. A 20-mile-an-hour wind gust came barreling down the valley and took it out right before the guests started arriving.
One more hole.
As a result, we do not have a picture of it fully assembled, but you should get a good feel for what it looks like from the images we do have. Let's get to the build, shall we? The core of the prop is 2 concrete tube forms. These are listed as 12 inches by 4 feet. There's a caveat in that the 12-inch dimension is listed as nominal, or in simple speak, approximate. For our construction, we needed as close to 12-inch diameter as we could find. Note, we tend to purchase our supplies at Menards, and I'll try to give their product labels an estimated cost as we go. The cement forms were around $17 a piece. The reason we need the tube to be 12 inches on diameter is we are going to connect the 2 cement tubes with something called a gamma seal lid. This is a 2-piece top for a 5-gallon bucket that creates a screw-on seal. They can be found next to the buckets at Menards. I'm showing the black one here as it is easier to see how the top unscrews from the matching ring that is press fit onto the bucket. You will need 2 of these seal lids.
Grab 2.
And I recommend picking those up first and then going to get the concrete forms so you can test fit them on top of both tube forms. You might have to try several before you find tubes that the lids fit on properly. Also pick up a standard 5-gallon lid, as you will need that for the top portion of the tree. There will be other items you will need to complete the build that I will point out as we go. Please take a look at the parts list in the description for a complete list. Time to start construction. Remove the inner rubber seal on both the ring portions of the gamma seal lids, the part that attaches to the bucket. Keep that rubber ring handy as we will be using it in a few steps. Then glue a ring to both ends of one of the concrete tubes. You do not want this to slip or come off, so make sure you use strong glue. Like in most of our haunt projects, we use Great Stuff adhesive foam. Wear gloves, as this stuff is like trying to keep syrup off your hands when trying to eat pancakes. Impossible. We do not want the cardboard tube sitting directly on the ground, as the trail can get damp as the night goes on. Using a scrap piece of 3/4-inch plywood, we cut out roughly a 2-foot square and screwed on 2x4s to the edges to make a raised platform. The actual lid was centered and then bolted upside down to this platform. Now the bottom section of the tree can be easily screwed onto the base, and best part, breaks down nicely for storing. Now it is time to create the connector for the second tube. The lid of the matching seal ring that we just attached to the top of the first tube needs to be affixed to the bottom of the second tube. Essentially, we have to replicate a flat surface like the base to attach it to the tube. To do this, we used a 3/4-inch piece of wood cut into a circle that just fits into the diameter of the tube, which is again 12 inches in diameter. If you have a circle cutter, awesome. We ended up cutting to the line on a chop saw and then sanding the tiny corners smooth so it would fit. Test fit it into the tube and then screw the Gamma Seal lid upside down again onto that wooden insert. The lip of the lid will extend slightly beyond the diameter of the tube. That is actually good, as it will hold the tube flat against the lid, allowing you to easily screw it in from the side. Recommend using large washers to keep the screw from going all the way through the cardboard. Here you can see the lip of the lid extending just beyond that wood insert. The two concrete tubes can now be easily assembled and disassembled just by screwing on and off these lids. Now time to stiffen up the structure. The concrete tubes are just made of cardboard, and there were concerns they could get wet on the trail and possibly bend or worse, disintegrate. At the time, we didn't even think about a 20-mile-an-hour wind blasting through it. To help prevent that, we added wood lats to the outside of the form. These are 1.5 inch by 1.25 inch, really ended up being thinner than that, wood strips that were 8 feet long each. I cut them to length to fit slightly inside the lip of the seal rings and angle cut the ends to fit better under the lip. I also sanded the long outside edges to have a smoother rounded shape. There were 7 of these strips placed equidistant around the bottom tube. Go ahead and glue these on. Again, we use the construction adhesive foam. The rubber seals make for a nice clamp while it is drying. We have watched a lot of tree tutorials online, and many of them simply add the outside form directly to the cardboard tube. We did not want to take the chance of it falling off, so we attached plastic poultry fencing around the outside of the tube, fastening it to one of the wood lats with a screw and large washer. This is similar to the netting we bought, but ours was completely plastic and 3 feet wide. Cheaper than this price as well. I just couldn't find the exact one on Menards' website to show you. This similar one has a plastic coating over wire, where ours is just all plastic. Nope, Menards has their product dimensions wrong on this. They show 4 inches. I'm pretty sure they meant 4 feet. You can see the roll we did use in the shot on the left. No wire in this one, and the right picture shows how it was attached to the wood strip. Not sure if this ended up being necessary or not, but we then ran the adhesive foam down each wood lat to make sure it stayed put. None of the netting moved while putting the outer foam on, which was very nice. A lot of busy work so far. Time for some fun. Our tree needed a scary face worthy of being able to break my elbow. Choose a face that works best for you, but I do recommend having large openings to let as much light out as possible, and limit your design to go no more than halfway around the tube. The face will actually go on the top tube. I used a cordless Dremel to cut the face in, but any form of handsaw will also do. Just make sure you do not bend the tube as you are cutting it. Oh, sorry, almost got ahead of myself. You will want to screw on that top tube to determine where you want the face to be. Due to the threading, it will end up at the same point every time you put it together. Simply mark the location of the front, unscrew it from the bottom, and then cut your face in from there. Now that the face is done, you can stiffen up that tube as well. Easiest is to add just 2 pieces of the wood lat to the face. Go straight past the openings. Those are cut out after the foam is applied. The back has more wood strips, as that is where the arms will attach, and I didn't want any bending there due to that extra weight from the arms. Add 6 pieces of wood on the back starting halfway around. Like the bottom, the plastic netting was attached and the foam adhesive added down the wood strips to keep it from coming off. Note, like with the wood, keep the netting across the face openings. We will take care of that after the foam has been added. It was time to add the tree bark. As you saw in our previous pumpkin video, our go-to foam covering is Loctite spray insulation foam. We use a foam gun, and that limits us to the window and door product. Both columns need to be covered with the foam going straight from top to bottom to mimic the look of bark. We found the easiest way to apply it was to stick a pole through the middle of the tube and prop the ends up on a bucket. Do the top portion of the tube, Let it set enough so that the foam stays adhered to the netting, and then rotate the tube and repeat until you make it all the way around. The picture doesn't show this well, but go all the way to the end of the rings and to the lip of the lids. Once the foam is dried, we came back and enhanced the face with additional foam to bring out those features better. Built up eyebrows, added a nose, thickened the outlines of the eye and mouth openings. Now that looks like an evil tree ready to do damage on unsuspecting runners. Set the trunk aside for a bit and grab the regular bucket lid. We wanted our tree to have a broken top look to it rather than just the straight top of the cement form. So we found a scrap piece of chicken wire and screwed it on the top of the lid using large washers to hold it in place. Might want to wear gloves for this next part, as this wire can really bite. Fold it upwards and shape it into peaks and valleys of varying heights and depths. This is going to provide a form to hold more spray foam. Continuing the up and down pattern, add foam to the outside and inside, completely covering the chicken wire and the top of the lid. This lid will simply sit on the top of the tree. You will likely have to shave off some foam or add some to make for a smooth transition at this part. Construction of the main body Revenge is now done. It is time to give it some scary branch arms. The core of the branches is pipe insulation. Goal was to make these as light as possible. They were going to be sticking quite a ways out from the tree trunk, which would naturally put more stress on the connection points. We used multiple sizes of foam, 1 inch, 3/4 inch, and 1/2 inch. If I remember correctly, we used 4 of each size. The price shown is for a 12-pack. We did not pay anywhere near that. Need less pieces, and honestly, you can probably find a better deal at other places. Pool noodles will also work, but those tend to be thicker and heavier, but again, they'll do just fine. The top picture shows how we took a length of 1 inch pipe foam and attached a 3/4 inch piece with the zip ties, followed by the 1/2 inch piece, basically getting a tapering effect. The 1 inch diameter portion has around a 2-foot length of 3/4 inch pipe with a 45-degree connector glued on into it. You do not want the foam spinning on the pipe, so make sure it is nice and solid. 2 more sections of that previous foam segment were created and zip tied around that first one to make it look like twisted branches. For the branch tips, 1/2 inch pipe sections were cut and added at varying angles to the ends. Repeat this process for both arms, but vary the fingertip placements for a non-uniform look. Rather than just having arms sticking straight out, they were given more character by putting a bend in them. Hard to see in the bottom image, but there is a piece of string tied on the ends to hold the shape while we were applying foam. Construction adhesive foam was added between the foam sticks to help keep them together and hold their shape. Like the trunk, the branch arms were then covered in the spray insulation foam. Be careful not to get foam on the inside of the PVC connector at the end. It was amazing how sturdy and light it was after everything dried. Oh, you can cut the string after it dries. It might bend back slightly, but for the most part, it will keep its shape. Now for the critical part, those nasty, evil roots that came out and clipped my shoe. At each of the 4 corners of the base, I attached a 3/4 inch PVC plug. A 3/4 inch T was then attached to that with a 12 to 15 inch piece of PVC pipe. That pipe needs to be heated and bent upwards along the side of the trunk. Try to stay about 1 inch from the trunk at the end. Bend the pipes off of the plugs and away from the base to keep from damaging the bark. Caution, wear a mask when bending the PVC pipe as it gives off toxic gases. If you do not have a heat gun, you can use a propane torch to heat the pipe, but be careful, you don't want to catch it on fire. See the link in the description below to our introductory video for our safety disclaimers. From there, we added a 3/4 inch 45-degree elbow connector to the T connector to get it bent towards the ground, and then added links of pipe, again bent into gnarly root shapes. Notice the one that actually caught my foot. Cover all the PVC with pipe insulation and add zip ties to hold it in place. At the base, you might want to add additional pieces of foam to make the roots look more realistic. A quick fit to see how everything is coming together. Now you see why we couldn't put it all together in the shop. Yep, even the evil foot clipping root is working as planned. We wanted to be able to take the roots off for storage convenience. This is the reason we added the PVC plug to the corners of the base. However, we wanted as tight a fit as possible when it was all put together. To do that, added a tight layer of parchment paper around the trunk before attaching the roots. Now spray the foam all the way to the parchment paper and then continue covering down the rest of the root. The foam will not glue to the parchment paper, allowing you to remove them, but the root will now match the profile of the tree. Remember where each root goes on the platform. Time to get back to the arms. There needs to be a connector to accept the PVC connector we glued into the base of each arm. This is one area I might redo for this year. It would have worked with the exception of the heavy winds, but the arms ended up being longer than expected and did put some extra stress at this connection point. I will update this video if I swap this out. For now, simply add a 3/4 inch end connector on the side of the tree on the wooden strip. Another smaller wood strip was added to the inside of the form to help give the connector strength. The bolts would have pulled right out if it was only hooked into the cardboard. Be sure and put 2 bolts in this to keep it from rotating. Just like the roots, we wanted a nice tight fit. Added the parchment paper around the trunk, inserted the PVC in each arm into the new connector on the trunk with a short piece of pipe, and then added foam to build up the connection point. It was important to be able to attach and take off the arms quickly while building and taking down the trail. We had a similar situation with the legs on a gargoyle we also made last year. Look for a future video on that build. On that gargoyle, we used hitch pins to attach the legs. Decided to use that same approach on these arms. We cut away enough of the foam on top where it would be difficult to see, drilled a hole all the way through the connector and pipe just big enough for the shaft of the pin, and then slid it in. Now we can quickly insert the pin or remove it for build and tear down. Almost finished, folks. It is paint time. The base was painted black to blend in with the dark trail. Do not get any paint on the inside of the seal rings or the cap. The entire tree was base coated with our favorite brown paint, Krylon Matte Coffee Bean. I love this color. We use it all over the place, and it looks great against the wood tones on the haunted trail. This took a lot of cans to get in all the crevices and low points of the foam. From there we came back and wet brushed a light brown to bring out the textures, and lastly came back with a dry brush of light beige paint to draw out the highlights.
Maybe there's a happy little tree that lives right here, and he's a little bigger, a little stronger. We can see more of his trunk. He's a strong little tree.
I have to say, this is one of our best paint jobs to date. All we have to do now is light it. Rather than just having an opening that would expose the inner cardboard to the elements, we picked up a diffuser panel. These are typically used for the covering of large neon light fixtures. They work great on haunt projects when you want to give a more uniform look to a lighted prop. A bit pricey for one sheet, but this brand cuts easily with a tin snip and surprisingly flexible, unlike those hard plastic options that can shatter if you're not careful. The 2 inner supports for the arms turn out to be perfectly placed to hold the diffuser on the inside of the tube. No glue needed in this situation. The best way to light the face is to have lights hanging directly behind the openings on the face. Using a piece of wire, we made a number of small loops in it and then attached it to the lid with long enough leads to get a strand of rope lights behind the eyes and mouth. The rope light was looped back and forth with large nuts on the ends of the loops to keep them somewhat taut. The light string was remote controlled, so we just ran the battery pack out the top at the back where it would not be easily seen. We will likely extend that battery wire so we can simply turn it on and off by hand rather than having to keep track of the remote. The rope light also had a flickering setting, giving it a burning fire look. It looks absolutely fantastic. You will have to use your imagination with the picture on your left and imagine the right trunk sitting on the left trunk for a 9-foot evil-looking haunted tree. Here it is on the trail after the wind decided to fell it. No time to fix it with early guests already coming down the trail, so we put the two halves out there like small stumps and added to the two tree-themed candelabras and, of course, the severed foot caused by that evil root. Hope you enjoyed this look back at one of our signature props for 2024. Apologies again for having to do this from behind the camera, but we didn't want to make you wait until I finally healed up to get this out. I was able to make it out to the garage and simulate what it would look like sans roots. Those were packed too deep in our storage shelves. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you enjoyed what we were bringing to you on this channel. And most of all, stay calm and haunt on.